Hello Vikings, together we're going to make your Mundo better. So, let's get into it. First and foremost, we are starting with ranged matchups. Mundo versus Urgot is the first one to take. Your win rate against Urgot is 55.6%, which means it's an extremely good matchup for you. And the reasoning behind this is because Urgot relies on being able to E into people, flip them around, which he cannot do because of your passive. And he cannot do it because you never need to walk melee range to him. You have your Q ability, which every time he steps outside of the minion area, you can Q right on him. He takes a lot of damage. And if he stays within the minions, you can E on a minion and stab it right into him. Which this guy isn't doing right now because he's still level 2. But it's an extremely good matchup where you want to pick Mundo into Urgot if somebody's playing Urgot. Now another reason why this is a good matchup is because once you get to team fights, Urgot cannot really do anything to you because Urgot tries to grab somebody, as we talked about earlier, in team fights, and he wants to be able to walk around someone in team fight. But as Mundo, you cannot be grabbed, which means you counter his main ability. And not only that, your team fight playstyle is by walking backwards, Q, walking backwards, walking around, poking a little bit, Q again, which is exactly a counter to Urgot's playstyle, which means Urgot can't really do anything. And you can see how strong you are in the laning phase. Urgot is having a very difficult time. Now, since we talked about ranged champions, you learned about Urgot, who kind of wants to go into you. But what about Jayce, who wants to be poking and staying away from you? Is this a good matchup or not? This is indeed another good matchup for Mundo. And the reason is, you are a healing bot. You don't mind poke so much. And again, you're walking around chilling, you're throwing Qs, which is really, really good against the Jayce. Plus, you're actually quite decent against him in laning phase. The lane is slightly difficult, but you have your E to damage him, you have Qs whenever he steps out, you have Qs to farm with as well, which means you saw it earlier. Mundo can sit back, chill, Q, farm, relax. It's not that hard to lane against the Jayce as Mundo compared to other champions, and Jayce kind of relies on getting ahead. So if you're meeting a Jayce, is this a good matchup? You want to play it, but if you do play this kind of matchup, try and rush Ninja Tabis as soon as possible. Play the steel caps as they call it now. And the reasoning is, movement speed is amazing against Jayce because you don't necessarily beat him 1v1. You can if you outplay him, but you don't need to. However, with a jungle gank, if you have movement speed and he doesn't, well, let's find out. He's gonna get caught and he's gonna die. So this matchup is another matchup that you wanna aim for, and it's very, very good for you. So if enemy picks Jayce, feel free to pick Mundo. It's a very good thing to do. Alright, so I told you about the ranged matchups. Now it's time to talk about bruisers, which is a little bit more interesting because it's more up and down depending on the champion. But before that, I want to tell you to watch till the end of the video because at the end we're going to have a bonus tip that you don't want to miss. Now let's get into it. The first one we want to talk about is Fiora, this little girl up here. So one thing you want to notice is Fiora tends to cheese here. Be careful of these two bushes, level 1. If she cheeses you, you cannot do anything. Now you might ask, is this a good matchup or not? That's important to know. It's a medium matchup that swings heavily depending on your team comps. If you have a poke comp where Fiora can't really get into your team and do what she needs to do, this is a great matchup for you. The laning phase is fine. You can actually win it if you play well. Playing around the passive of her, you should be able to win the lane as you see this Mundo doing currently. And your E is extremely good against her. Now, if your team comp is more so of a team comp where you have a lot of tanky champions, they're melee, she can easily get into them and do what she needs to do, this is a really bad matchup for you. So if you want to pick Mundo into Fiora, you have to first look at your team comp. And you have to pick Mundo really late and be like, is this really a matchup I want or is this not a matchup I want? And that is the question you gotta ask to figure out this matchup. Because lane is not a problem, it's only about after the laning phase for this matchup. So far, we have only talked about good matchups for Mundo, but it's time to talk about one of the absolute worst matchups for Mundo. Now, I'll explain to you why this is such a bad matchup as well, because it's important that you know it. So, Mundo is very good at abusing lanes due to his Q and E, which we talked about previously. However, Camille is very good at surviving lanes because of her W. Mundo does damage to her, she uses W to heal herself up, and she doesn't really mind that much anymore. Plus, she got her grasp, which she can prog you whenever you're auto-attacking her, and overall she have a lot of sustain. Now, the problem isn't only the laning phase. Laning phase, you can kind of survive it, it's okay. It's a little bit hard for you, but again, it's okay. The problem is, after the laning phase, Camille is the god of scaling as a top laner. She's going to outscale you, she's going to easily get on your carries, and you can't do anything to stop her because you don't have any CC and you just don't have any strengths. So overall, if you see a Camille picked in the enemy team, please, for the love of God, do not pick Mundo, because as you see here, you're gonna end up sad like this guy. You don't want to be that guy. So it is time to talk about one of my beloved matchups, Jayce. Now, Jayce is sadly a really good matchup for Mundo. I love playing Jayce. It's not nice for me, but it's just how it is. Mundo counters Jayce extremely hard. Yes, you get kind of outscaled, but the thing is, you destroy him in laning phase. Jayce doesn't have any healing, so your E is scary as hell, your Q is extremely dangerous, your stun doesn't really do anything to him, and he's going to beat you straight up. Which is why this is a matchup you want to pick Mundo into. The enemy picks Jayce, you're like, yeah, do it. I'm gonna pick this Mundo, and I'm gonna slap you around. Because honestly, this is the perfect matchup for you. You're gonna pick up a lot of kills, potentially, and a lot of gold, and that's what business Mundo is all about. Getting that golden money to get strong and kill everybody. How about we talk a little bit about AP boosters as well. So, we talked about earlier, be careful about getting cheesed on Mundo, because Mundo is not that strong in level 1. This game, Mundo is being cheesed by Gwen, and Gwen is playing this fantastic, while Mundo is being a little bit of a donkey. Overall, this is a bad matchup for you, because first and foremost, laning phase, you're gonna get beaten up, just like this one. Second of all, Gwen is a counter to everything Mundo wants to do. Teamfights, easy to auto-take you, ultimate right through you, hit the people behind you as well, Q straight on you. You're not gonna be able to tank against the Gwen, so Gwen beats you in laning phase, she beats you in teamfights, she counters everything you're about, and overall, trust me, this is a matchup you want to avoid, because you're gonna have a rough time, and isn't it much nicer to have an easy time? It is, so overall, don't play Gwen into this matchup, because it's not gonna work in most cases. You might be lucky 1 or 2 times. You might even have some games where you're like, yo, it worked. This is a pretty good matchup for me. But that's only because the Gwen is bad. If the Gwen is good, it's never gonna work. I'm sorry to tell you. Let's get into the tank matchups. First off, we have Mundo versus Shen. Now, you're thinking, is this a good matchup or not? It is even. Now, you gotta think more deeper than this, right? If you have a team comp where it fits Mundo, for example, have a kind of poke comp, the enemies doesn't have crazy engages like Kiana and so on, yeah, Mundo is great. But if Shen have a perfect comp for him, where he can engage and catch people like Kiana, Talon, Akali, those kind of comps that really sets him up nicely for his ultimate, or if you have a bot lane that can permanently dive your bot lane, in those cases, this is a horrible matchup, because it's all about playing around team comps with these two champions if they're playing against each other. Mundo can slightly win the laning phase. Mundo is also quite good in team fights, but the problem is Shen is much better with map pressure. So it all depends, is my team reliant on the map pressure or not? If you have a Lulu Kog'Maw bot lane who cannot get dove, is kind of just chilling the whole time, you have a safe mid lane like a Nivea, well, in that case, you want to play the Mundo. Mundo is great. But if you have super squishy, crazy champions that are going to go all in all the time, like a Zed and so on, in that case, Shen is much better. So you got to figure out what do you actually want to play for my team in this game with these two matchups. And then you figure out, do I want to play Mundo into Shen or not? Let's talk about the opposite kind of tanks. We have Ornn. Mundo versus Ornn is a great matchup for Mundo, because Ornn doesn't get to have map pressure like Shen does, and you're better than Ornn in laning phase if you play it well, avoiding his pillar or wall or whatever you want to know, the mountain he throws out. If you avoid that one, you should be able to beat him in the laning phase, which is great for you. You can snowball off that. And also in team fights, yes, there's obviously a case where Ornn is better, but overall, Mundo is a fantastic pick against Ornn in team fights, because when Ornn uses his abilities to make a massive CC engage, you are a big wall standing in the way of his team getting onto your team, which means this is a perfect matchup for you. Feel free to pick it. Time for Juggernauts. So, Mundo against Mordekaiser is the first one. Mundo is fantastic against Mordekaiser because you counter him in every possible way. His laning phase is all about poking. You can stand back, cleaver for days, relax, and chill. Not really that difficult. Laning phase is good because of that. You have mid game where you're pretty strong, you actually beat him, he's gonna have a difficult time with you. His ultimate, he can't really kill you in ultimate like he can most other champions, and he relies on being able to snowball with that. Team fights, you're also fantastic against him, because again, he ultimates you, pretty happy. He doesn't, pretty happy as well, not really a big deal. Just make sure you never allow him to get free stacks where he uses his passive, and you should be good. And that's also why Mundo have a whooping 55.57% win rate against Mordekaiser. It's absolutely dominating. Pick it every time you can, you're gonna win a lot. Now it's time to talk about the absolute doomslayer, Darius. Everybody's afraid of Darius because he's terrifying to play against, but Mundo is actually not that afraid of Darius. Mundo is great into Darius because you counter everything he's all about. You can also kill him in laning phase. You're very, very strong in lane because of your Qs and your E's, which are easy to hit on a person that wants to play aggressive. Darius wants kill in laning phase, you kinda counter that. Darius's E, you counter that with your passive because he cooks you? your blob goes out, you pick up the blob, you don't really care. And then also in team fights, again, you counter him because you just sit back, slow, 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 slow. It's a perfect matchup for you. You want to play this matchup as much as possible. And Darius is one of the champion a lot of players have troubles with. And now you know a counter, which will make you have a much better time when you're playing League of Legends. Now, for the bonus tip of the day, let's get you a quick overview of where Mundo is good and bad. So, Mundo is great against ranged champions. He's decent against tanks. He's amazing against juggernauts most of the time. And then Bruisers is either super hit or super miss. Camille, you get stumped. Jayce, you win against. And it's the same for all the other champions. So, if you don't really know if you should pick Mundo or not, try not to pick him into Bruisers and try to pick him into the other 3 categories. See you guys next time, Vikings. Peace.